So we're back, right? We're back, ready to roll. Well, welcome to what this time for certain will be the final episode of Upon Further Review. We tried to tape this last week. We understand we were on a bunch of talking heads with no talk coming out of our mouths. We had an audio difficulty. We apologize for that, but we're back this week and we're going to do it all again for you and have a special surprise. We will reveal our Sweet 16 offense and defense all-stars a little bit later in the show. But as always, we want to thank our fine sponsors, Conlon Tarker, Troy Allen, Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, along with Penn United Technologies and the Butler Health System. And I'm flanked as always on my right, Derek Paido, Eagle Sports Writer, and my co-writer, Eagle Sports Writer. My name's John Henrietto, Eagle Sports Editor. And before we get into the Sweet 16, Derek, you covered a couple weeks back the WPIL 6A title game. Pine Richland, you know, the Seneca Valley pretty good, 34-7. What are your thoughts on that game, looking back at it?
Well, two numbers that really stuck out for me in that game were, first and foremost, 5-1. That was the numbers by which Pine Richland won the turnover battle. I'm sure if you would have told Ron Butchley, Seneca's coach, before the game, your team's going to have one turnover in this game, he probably would have said that was too much. And Seneca Valley turned the ball over 5 times. And the other number that really stood out for me was 237-52. The numbers by which Pine Richland outrushed Seneca Valley. I had no problem taking Seneca Valley in this game because I was swayed toward their side, because not the fact that they beat North Allegheny in the semifinal, but their offense really looked good. John, you covered that game.
I did.
And I figured, okay, North Allegheny has a good defense. Seneca Valley just ran the ball all over them. Gabe Lawson had a good game, and I figured if they can do that against North Allegheny, they can do it against Pine Richland, and they did do it against Pine Richland. So maybe it's Pine Richland's defense is that much better than A's. I mean, Pine Richland's still playing. That could be the case.
Well, I did pick Pine Richland to win that game, but I picked a much closer game than it turned out. Derek said the numbers, the rushing differential in that game. Pine Richland controlled the line of scrimmage, plus the turnovers. But I thought one of the other big differences in that game was Seneca Valley clearly structured their defense to force Pine Richland's sophomore quarterback Cole Spencer to beat them, and he had an outstanding game.
He largely did. I think the turnovers were more of a factor than anything else in that game. I think Seneca Valley picked a bad week to have a bad week.
Sure.
You know, teams are going to have that. There's going to be a week during the season when you're going to have 4 turnovers where things aren't going to go your way, and Seneca just happened to have that week come at the worst possible time in the Whitfield Championship game. I thought, we all thought that this was going to be a much closer game, and it was close for a while. But then the turnover snowballed, and like you said, Seneca's plan was to make that sophomore quarterback beat him, and that sophomore quarterback did a very good job in doing that. He had a great game. Pine Richland had a great game all around. Seneca didn't have their best game, and that's why the final was the way it was, 34-7.
Yeah. I don't have the numbers right in front of me here, Derek. You might be able to concur on this, but I believe Cole Spencer for Pine Richland might have thrown for a couple hundred and ran for 100 or something like that. I mean, I know he had some great numbers in that game.
He ran for 96, and he threw for 151. But he had a hand in their first 4 touchdowns between rushing and throwing. First 4 touchdowns. That game was only 7-0.
Yeah.
But the tide of momentum was just too strong for Seneca Valley to overcome in the second.
And Seneca moved the ball early on Pine Richland. They just couldn't convert. So if they do that, maybe the game changes a little bit. So
first drive of the game, Seneca Valley had a blocked field goal.
Field goal, and who knows, put 3 up on the board early, get some momentum. But that blocked field goal, any special teams play, negative on your part is a big momentum shift.
Yeah, sometimes you have to tip your cap to a guy on the other team, and like I said, I'm impressed by that quarterback. I know I keep bringing up his name, but to put up those kind of numbers,
yeah, man crush on him.
I do. To put up those kind of numbers as a sophomore in a district title game, to me, is pretty impressive.
And stepping into the shoes of Phil Dracovic, not as easy, but they got him for 2 more years. I'm sure Eric Casper is not jersey.
Pine Richland knows how to grow quarterbacks down there, and he looks like this kid's next in line.
They're Brookville South.
They are Brookville South. they are indeed. Let's go. I don't know if you have the numbers handy there, but final picks for the season, how the group wind up, and how the three of us wind up.
As you
I predict
mentioned,
I finished last.
you
You finally got something right.
I got something right. I should have added victory to my team.
as you said, John, you were the only one who picked the Woodville championship game correctly. The final standings are Scoop 102 and 14.
Amazing.
100 wins for Scoop.
You were
14
one game
losses
behind
is
them.
amazing.
John, you were 101 and 15. I was 98 and 18. Mike was 96 and 20. Now, I said this on the show that never was, basically.
Well, the show that was, it was just never heard it. That's all. Right.
And I've been keeping track of the Scoop standings for 5 or 6 years now. And I can tell you, going into this year, 80% was the threshold. If you could get over 80%, you were having a really good season. Mike was 96 and 20, and I think that worked out to like 82.7%. All
Take it.
of us were well over 80%.
Any other year, 96 and 20, you probably would have won this thing. So.
Tony, that would do well in Vegas. They would. They would do well in Vegas. Not that you can bet on high school football.
Roll the dice, take a chance.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's shift gears here, and as I mentioned at the top of the program here, we are going to reveal on our program here our Sweet 16
Drum roll.
offense and defense. This will appear in detail in this Sunday's Butler Eagle. I believe December the 2nd, I think the date is. But we're going to give our loyal viewers a sneak peek right now. So we're going to start with offense, and Mike, I'm going to give you the honors of revealing your offense. We'll go 4 players at a time.
4 players at a time.
Your choice of 4, and then we'll talk about
I
it.
organized them by position. We had 3 quarterbacks this year, 1 wide receiver. We had 4 running backs, and believe it or not, we had 8 offensive linemen. It was a big year for offensive
Yes, it was.
linemen.
It was a big year for
Butler County.
offensive
We had some
linemen.
great offensive linemen this year. So let's start with the quarterbacks and the 1 wide receiver we had. Okay, the first guy, Sippy Rock's Vito Pelosi made our Sweet 16 offense. Then we have Gabe Lawson from Seneca Valley at quarterback. And of course, Zach Rocco from North Catholic. I think that was a no-brainer. And the 1 wide receiver on our team this year, Tyree Brown from North Catholic. Zach Rocco's main target this season. So those 4 guys kick off our Sweet 16 offense. Of course, we start with the quarterbacks and the wide receivers because those are the glamour positions.
Sure.
So let's talk about some of these guys.
Those 3 quarterbacks, pretty versatile guys, aren't they? I know you've seen 2 of them play, and I've seen 2 of them play, I guess. But if you talk about Gabe Lawson, what he meant to Seneca Valley this year.
I think he put up decent numbers as a sophomore last year, but if you talk to Seneca Valley coach Ron Butchley, he matured so much this year. That year of starting as a sophomore, he really kind of used that as a springboard, and he was a big reason why Seneca Valley made it to the Woodville championship game. The thing that stands out most for me about Gabe, and he had great numbers: 1,335 yards passing, 353 yards rushing, 20 total touchdowns. But this is where Gabe Lawson got most of the respect from me this year. In the Central Catholic playoff game, he played a bad first half. The whole team played not well. Even the defense didn't have a good first half. He was benched.
He's actually benched, yeah.
He was benched.
Yep.
And a lot of kids would sulk, pout. If they are called to go back in the game, they wouldn't be able to focus. They'd be focused on the fact that they were just benched. He didn't. He came back in, and in the second half, when Seneca Valley made that comeback between his rushing and passing, I mean, that meant the world to Seneca. And if he doesn't play that well in the second half, I don't think they win that game. Even though their defense was, they won the game by 1 point. Even though their defense played really well, they still needed the offense to score some points.
That to me trumps almost any numbers he puts up, anything else he's done on the field. The attitude he took there, getting benched, getting humbled, coming back, playing as well as he did, that shows great character. That kid's going to be successful in whatever he does, based just on the way he handled that situation. Kudos to him for that. He deserves a spot on his team just for that kind of attitude.
Like Vito Pelosi from Sippy to me, more than, and I saw Sippy play a couple times this season, to me, more than his numbers, which are impressive enough, he developed into a true leader.
He developed quickly, too.
Yeah.
Last year, he was kind of thrown into the fire. Coach Larry Wenderoos at Sippy Rock kind of even said to me a few times this year that maybe we threw him in a little too early. He was kind of overwhelmed at times last year, but give credit to him. He worked hard. This year, something clicked for him. Clicked for that Sippy Rock offense. From about game 3 or 4 on, he was lights out, running the ball, passing, very effective passing, hit some big pass plays, which that offense needed. And not only that, there's a lot of pressure on the quarterback at Slippery Rock because of the offense they run.
They run read offenses.
There's a lot of reads, not just in the running game, but even in the passing game. There's a lot of reads. The game slowed down for him. He showed what kind of talent he is. He's coming back next year, so they're excited about that. So Vito Pelosi to me is the most improved player on this list by a mile.
They do a lot of They do a lot of quick hitting passing too, where he doesn't have time to go back and survey the defense, but he's got to read it right at the line of scrimmage while he's calling.
And they also like to hit those big pass plays, and he's shown great. He showed great touch, great accuracy on that, and giving that offense a wrinkle that I think really let that offense, no pun intended, rocket up the charts this year. Big reason why they had such a successful season this year was Vito Pelosi running the show there.
And Derek, how about this North Catholic combination, Zach Rocco and Tyree Brown? I mean, they gave defensive fits, and Zach Rocco, I still think he's a junior, right? Doesn't he have another year? Yeah, it seems like he's been around forever, and he's pounding up some huge numbers.
Yeah, 26 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I mean, that's a great ratio. 499 yards rushing and almost 2,000 yards passing. And as Mike said, that Tyree Brown was our one wide receiver. It's not like we were just trying to throw a bone to the wide receiver. This kid deserved this.
He does.
36 catches. That might sound like, 36 catches, not a huge amount, but 21 yards per catch and 8 touchdowns. He led the team in catches by 13. The next kid down, I think, was Nakai Hill-Green. He had 23. So that passing game, it was huge for them. Late in the year, they kind of focused a little bit more on the run. But when teams are preparing for you and they can see a kid on film that it's catching passes at 21 yards a clip and is able to get to the end zone, that affects a team's game plan. That can open up the run. So not only did he put up the numbers, but I'm sure he had something to do with the running game as well, being as successful as it was.
When you average over 20 yards per catch and you catch that many passes, you're a big play wide receiver. That's all there is to it. Mike, how about another 4 guys here?
All right, let's go to the running backs. We have four of them this year, and man, they're a pretty good group of 4 here. Let's start with the scoring trophy winner, Garrett Ranke from Mars. Then we got Hunter Jones from Carson City, who was in the scoring trophy race for much of the year. And then a guy from Montauk who we've talked about, a big bruising back. Love to watch him run. Cody Wise from Montauk. And then we have, just for good measure, from Knock, the Knock single season rushing record holder, Matt Goodland. So those 4 guys, man, that's probably one of our best group of running backs.
The 1,000-yard rushing club. All 4 of those
from
guys.
top to bottom, great running back group this year for our Sweet 16.
Matt Goodland, one of the keys certainly to Knox triple option offense. Just a slashing downhill type of runner, breaks tackles, has speed once he gets out into the open. Hunter Jones from Carson City, he wasn't their entire offense, but he sure was a huge chunk of it. I mean, he was their go-to guy for sure. Derek, you covered Mars, and Garrett Ranke, as Mike mentioned, our Eagle scoring trophy winner, over 1,800 yards rushing. What are your thoughts on the season that Garrett put together?
The 5th Mars running back to win the Butler Eagle scoring trophy. It really was a feel-good story because last year I covered a handful of Mars games. I talked to Heinauer every week for the preview. This is 2017. And Ranke came into last season with an injured ankle. In the 4th game of the season, he injures the other ankle. And he actually missed 1 full game, played the rest, but was not 100% for any of the games in 2017. Ended the year with 533 yards rushing, which actually led the team. But I talked to him recently for the scoring trophy story. He said, I knew then that I was capable of more. And he told me he had a chip on his shoulder during the offseason. Goes out this year, not only does he score 132 points to win the scoring trophy, he rushes for 1,807 yards, which even for an offense that runs the ball a lot, that's still a ton of yards.
Yeah, I talked to him this summer for a story when he was going to all these camps, and he said last year was just a nightmare for him because he played the whole year hurt. He saw holes that he normally can get through and cuts that he normally can make. He couldn't make them. He just was so hobbled. So it was great to see him bounce back this year, stay healthy. That was one of his goals, he wanted to stay healthy because his ankles hadn't bothered him much as last year, but in the past. This year, it seemed like nothing was bothering him this year physically because he went out from game 1 to the last game and played hard and played well. So good for him to bounce back and cap his career in such a great fashion.
Like you saw a lot of Montauk this year, and Cody Wise to me kind of typifies their team, doesn't he?
When Montauk decided, look, this is what we do well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give the ball to Cody Wise behind that great offensive line, which we'll get to later. There's some guys on defense that could have gone on the offensive line, but we had so many great offensive linemen. We're going to run Cody Wise behind Nick Martino, a great fullback, who I might talk about later, and a great offensive line. And we're just going to pound people. We're just going to run it up the gut. We're going to make them stop us. Once they decided that's what we're going to do, Cody Wise took off. He had some great games down the stretch, great playoff game against Clarion. He's one of the big reasons why Montauk had such a great bounce back season this year. And I just love his running style.
Sure.
We talked about it a few weeks ago by Mike Allstott. Dragging people, running over people, initiating contact. He's one of those throwback running backs who you just love to watch because you know anytime he gets the ball in the open field, something awesome's going to happen because he's going to run it over somebody, he's going to stiff arm somebody, 5 guys are going to have to bring him down, he's going to fight for every yard. And he didn't fumble that. I don't think he fumbled all year, which with a running back of that style, that's something you have to worry about because when you fight for extra yardage, guys come and try to strip. But he's just a solid high school football player. He kind of epitomizes the power running game.
Well, I believe our other 8 are, if I'm not mistaken, our offensive linemen.
I split them up.
If you want to split them up, you can. If you want to rattle off the 8.
No, I split them up interior line and tackles.
Okay.
Excuse me. Getting choked up. Let's start with the interior line. We got. I love my offensive lineman.
I can see that.
Let's start with Cole Lassinger from Knock. He paved the way for Matt Goodland a lot of the year. Bobby Matthews from Montauk, but really Montauk could have had 2 other guys on there easily, but we'll get to them later. How do you pronounce this? Dave Takich?
The T is silent.
So it's
Catch.
David
Catch.
Okay.
I should have asked you before we went on.
Should have been
David
receiver.
Catch. Yeah, should have been receiver.
Okay.
Maybe throw a little fake, little trick play to him like they did with the Steelers in Illinois. David Catch from Seneca Valley and Hunter Boyd from Mars. These are the nuts and bolts, the interior linemen this year.
And not by coincidence, those 4 teams, not
represent
Seneca Valley, Mars,
some of the running backs.
4 teams, and some of the running backs, and some teams that rely very heavily on the running game. Derek, you can't run the ball without quality linemen, and those 4 guys are a prime example of it.
Yeah. So I just got done talking about Gabe Lawson, how he was able to kind of exploit teams through the air and with his legs, but none of that happens. And the jolt that offense got from Jake Meinweiser late in the season, that doesn't happen if the guys up front aren't blocking. They don't have stats except I know Mike did a story on a Montauk kid this year that had like
16 pancake
16
blocks. 17 or 17.
So pancake blocks, that's like the one stat, but this is a great opportunity for us to recognize those guys up front and what they do. And as you said, each one of those offenses did well this year, and that's where it all starts. So we have 8 offensive linemen on the Sweet 16, but they deserve it.
I'm really happy about that.
That's
that.
by far the most we've ever had.
No question about that. We're lucky if we get 3.
Yeah, we usually have 3 or 4,
in the
maybe
regular
5
season.
if we're lucky.
But I'm happy about this because you're right. These guys go through a whole season and names don't get mentioned often, if at all. And this is an opportunity to really show what they mean to their team. So how about our last 4 offense?
There's 4 more linemen. These are guys that play primarily at the tackle spots. Sean Northcott from Slippery Rock. He was a beast for Slippery Rock this year on both sides of the ball. Marcus Might, pretty good name for an offensive lineman from Seneca Valley. Michael Carmody from Mars. We've talked about him in the past.
You recognizable name there.
Yeah, and my favorite name on the offense, Finnegan O'Shea. From North Catholic. Sounds like a name that you would put in a novel.
Sounds like a pro wrestling name.
Yeah, Finnegan O'Shea.
Good pro wrestling.
Pretty sure he's Irish. I could be wrong. So those guys. What strikes me too about these 8 names on the offensive line is how many guys could have gone defense too.
Oh sure, yeah.
You're right. When we talk about the defense, there's a number of guys on the defensive line that could have gone offense.
Yep.
So we had a lot of great 2-way players on the offensive line this season. So.
Michael Carmody, it goes without saying how good he is when you're a freshman or sophomore when he was, and Pitt was already had him on their radar, and I'm sure a lot of other teams do right now as well. Derek, you saw Seneca, Marcus Mike, another great lineman there at Mars with Michael Carmody. You saw North Catholic, Finnegan O'Shea. So Once again, just a prime example of how critical these linemen were to their teams.
Yeah, the thing that sticks out about Marcus Might is he played football as a freshman and sophomore as a tight end. Did not play football at all last year. Comes into camp this year, comes back to football, and Ron Butcher said, I'm going to make you into a tackle. And at the end of the season, I was talking to Butcher right before the Pine Richland game. He said, Marcus Might's our best offensive lineman, which is saying something because one of his teammates, David Catch, also made our Sweet 16. The other three starting linemen for them, Kevin Meter, Josh Kaltenberger, and Drew Robertson, they were all good too. They were all very good linemen. And for Marcus Might to play his first year as an offensive lineman and to make the team, you know, he's big, he's got size, he's a great kid, and he's also playing basketball. So watch out.
I was about to make that comment just to show you the athleticism that Marcus Might had. He's also one of the Seneca's stronger basketball players,
Yeah.
one of the better players in basketball. Yep.
He's playing for new coach Kevin Trost.
That's right.
So I get to talk to Kevin on Friday, and I'm sure I'll be asking him about Marcus on the basketball.
And Sean Northcott, this is a good story too. This kid, you know, great thrower in track and field, strong as an ox.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely wrecked teams on both sides of the ball this year. He paved the way for the trio of Sippy Rock ball carriers this season. Helped protect Vito Pelosi in some of those pass plays. On defense, he was a wrecking ball too. So good to see Sean Northcott getting some love on his team because he had one of the best overall all-around seasons. We'll talk about another guy, Montauk, later, who had probably one of the most eye-opening seasons any lineman could have this season.
Well, Speaking of defense, let's switch over to the other side of the line of scrimmage. Derek, you have our defensive team. Let's hit us with our first four selections.
I found it easier just the way things are set up here to divide it by teams, so that's what we're going to do.
Okay, all right.
I'm still going to do 4x4 though. So
Okay.
we got this is our Sweet 16 defense. We got Freeport's Patrick Keeley at linebacker, Austin Romanchak at defensive back, and Monotaw's James Parenti at tackle, and Donovan, probably my favorite name on the Sweet 16, Donovan Francois at tackle for Monotaw's line. And you look at both of those teams, obviously. Romanchak, we talked a lot this year about what he's meant to the team's offense. Obviously,
He ran for 1,000 yards as a quarterback.
And he caught some passes.
runner.
Yes.
But this shows you how versatile he is. He makes our Sweet 16 defense, and obviously the two guys for Montauk, that defense. I only covered Montauk one time this year, and it was actually in a loss. But they gave Ridgeway fits for about 3/4 of that game, and these two guys, Parenti and Francois, were a big reason for that.
Now, I know James Parenti, Mike. I know he was the guy you were referring to earlier. I mean, what a monster season he said.
Monster season on both sides of the ball. He's the guy that had the 17 pancake blocks. I think he ended up with something like 50 pancake blocks this year. He had, I can't remember the exact stat, but he had well into double digits tackles for loss. He might have had 22 tackles for loss, something like that. So this kid was, I think he turned in the best season on both sides of the ball on a line that we've ever had in Butler County, just numbers wise. You throw in the pancake blocks. Plus, he's a great leader. He's a great leader on this team. So to me, James Parenti might be the best all-around player on all these 32 kids. Just when he met, and then Donovan Francois is another guy that could have gone on the offensive line. He was a dominant force on both sides. Like a big kid with deceiving quickness. As a sophomore year, he was a fullback. Wade Bogan used him a little bit at fullback, and he had that big interception return against Clarion, a big man with football running down the field. He actually juked the guy, so that shows you what kind of speed he has and what kind of moves he has for a 300-pound kid. So I'm glad that both of these guys made it. I love Austin Romanchak made it somewhere because he was another great all-around. He was another great all-around player for Freeport.
In fact, I did a lot of Freeport football previews this year and talked to John Gale on pretty much every week. He would bring up Patrick Keeley's name almost every single week as making a big play. He's one of the leaders on the defense. He considered Patrick Keeley one of the top linebackers in their section, and he made the all-section team, so which tells you that right there too. And Austin Romanchak, I believe in their conference, made like all-purpose.
Yeah.
All-purpose player, not just all-purpose back, made all-purpose
Well, he returned
player.
kicks. He
he
played
did it
wide
all for him,
receiver.
yeah.
He
He did it
ran
all
and
for him.
threw. He played defensive back. He made big plays on defense.
I think he played the band at halftime too.
Oh, he was one of those players. He was always on the field. He was on the field all the time. So, all right, Derek, we'll have another 4 players.
All right, our next 4 are Karn City's Mitch Kelsey, brother of Maverick. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yep. Mitch
Maverick's
Kelsey.
up at Clarion. Yep.
Mitch Kelsey at defensive end, and Slippery Rock's Jake Schaefer at linebacker, Mitchell Houston at defensive tackle, and David Duffalo at linebacker. Mike, we just talked about what the players for Slippery Rock, who made our Sweet 16 offense, meant to the Rockets. What did these 3 players mean to the Rockets in their 7-4 season?
Well, Schaefer was one of their best all-around linebackers. Schaefer and Duffalo, great duo inside. But I want to talk about Mitchell Houston, another guy that could have gone on offense because he was a dominant offensive lineman too. Coach Wenders raved about him all year. He would beat double teams. He would sometimes get triple teamed, which made life a lot easier for Jake Schaefer and David Duffalo at linebacker. So those 3 guys really all fed off each other. So I'm glad those 3 guys made it, especially Mitchell Houston, because that's a really unsung position. When you're getting double team, sometimes triple team, you're getting beat up every game inside, and knowing that your job is to soak up blockers so the other guys can come in and make plays. He also had some numbers too. He had some tackles for losses. He had some sacks. So he had a great season.
Yeah, here's what I like about those 3 Slip Rock guys on defense. They're all different type of players.
Yeah.
I mean, Mitchell Houston was a physical presence in there. As you mentioned, Mike, he would tie up 2 or 3 blockers. Jake Schaefer is just an outstanding fundamental linebacker, always in on making plays, always a solid tackler. He didn't miss tackles, always in the right position. And David Duffalo, one of those smaller linebackers who would just drive teams nuts because he was so mobile, flying to the ball everywhere from side. One of those. David Duffalo was one of those sideline to sideline.
And he turned into a pretty good season at running back too.
He did. And the Kelsey, Mitch Kelsey from Karn City, defensive end. When we were talking to the coaches there, the Karn City coach kept talking about Kelsey, and he was our impact guy. And he was one. They had a couple of good ends, but he said Kelsey was one of those guys.
I covered a number of their games, and he gave everyone fits. It was really hard to block him. He didn't get a lot of sacks, but he put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. He made life difficult, and he's pretty good at run support too. He had a knack of chasing down runners from the backside and running down the line to make plays. So he was definitely an impact player.
I have another 4 players.
I'm going to give you North Catholic's Dom Prentice at defensive tackle, Kai Hill Green at linebacker, middle linebacker, Mars's Chase Lambert. I don't know if he's any relation to Jack.
I don't think so.
Defensive tackle, and Drew Schlegel at defensive back, a safety. One thing I do want to mention right off the bat here about Schlegel is, we talked about how a lot of these players could go either way. Drew Schlegel came up big for Mars this year on offense. Didn't start the year starting on offense, played strictly on defense, and I believe it was in mid-September, Chuck Green, there's no doubt in my mind Chuck Green would be on this team had he stayed healthy. He goes down. He was a wingback. Drew Schlegel, aside from playing safety on defense, moves over to wingback. In the 2 games I covered where he played, he came up with some big receptions and runs. I'm talking like 45, 50-yard games in the 2 games I covered. So, but he makes our team on defense, and he was kind of the leader of that secondary. And you talk to Scott Heinauer, that was the strength of the defense, was that secondary.
Drew Schlegel was just an athlete, period. I mean, I covered a game down at Sheila. They were down for Sheila's homecoming. He had the big interception and return down inside the 5-yard line that totally changed the momentum of that game. Sheila at the time was driving for a go-ahead score. Schlegel picks one off, runs it back 50-plus yards, and Mars ends up punching that ball in and winning that ball game. He was that play was a big reason for that. You mentioned Chase Lambert. Well, he's not related to Jack Lambert. I do believe Chase Lambert is the son of Butch Lambert, who's a long-time standout in the stock car division down Winterville Speedway. So among the all-time.
So that's where he gets his motor.
Yeah. It could be. It could be.
Motor is always running.
Yeah. And then there's the North Catholic players. Don Prentice, the tackle. We mentioned North Catholic's offense running and throwing the ball, and Nakai Hill Green, another standout player, Derek, on both sides of the football.
Yeah. Don Prentice, I was talking to Patrick O'Shea shortly after their playoff loss to Berry, and he told me that Dom was voted the defensive lineman in the conference this year. And I said, oh, okay, and I'm copying it down, and then the next thing he tells me, he said, I was actually pretty disappointed in him. I was like, what do you mean? He said he thought Dom had a chance to be the defensive player of the year, period, regardless of position in the entire conference. And you guys know, Derry's in that conference, Elizabeth Forward's, Freeport's in that conference. I mean, it's a good conference, a lot of good athletes, and he thought Dom Prentice had a chance to be the defensive player of the year. As it was, he was voted the conference's defensive lineman of the year.
Mike, any thoughts you have
Again, a common theme of these teams is guys that play well on both sides of the ball. Nakai Hill-Green is another example of that. I know he missed a couple games too. I know he's getting Division I bites for his talents at the next level. So, but yeah, I mean, Drew Schlegel is another guy who offense, defense, like you said, he's an athlete, he's a player, he's a football player. That's what we want on this team. We want guys like that.
I was just saying, if there's a key theme to this year's Sweet 16, it's versatility.
Yeah, it's very
I mean, a lot of these guys we could almost flop the offense and put them on defense. We could almost do that.
Almost.
All right, Derek, let's go with
With the exception of a few guys, yeah.
Let's go with our final four choices here.
Okay, Seneca Valley, and obviously they had a great year defensively, great year, and they will be represented on our Sweet 16 defense by linebackers Jake Stebbins, Sage Lay, and safety Josh McLean, and Union AC Valley. I believe this is their first representative since they became a combined team.
It is as far as making the Sweet 16, yes.
Joe Dehart, defensive lineman. I talked to Ray Fox, an assistant coach for Union AC Valley, and he told me that Joe was the heart and soul of both lines, offense and defense, and he was voted all-conference on both sides of the ball. So congratulations to Joe. It's nice to see that program get represented again on our team here.
It really is, and you look at the stride that Union AC Valley made this year, and it's largely in part because of players like Joe DeHart and Jake Stebbins. Once again, goes about versatility theme. Right? Jake Stebbins also an outstanding tight end in the Seneca Valley offense. Josh McLean, if I'm not mistaken, Derek, the leading pass receiver also, was he not? Was McLean the leading receiver?
I
think
believe
Brown
he
has.
was.
Do you have more receptions than Brown?
No, I mean,
Seneca Valley.
Yeah, I think he ended up with like 28, 29 catches, but they had several receivers who could catch the ball, but he led the group, And Jake Stebbins, 159 tackles this year, 19 for loss.
Yeah, that's impressive.
McLean was a leader of Seneca Valley did not have a weak unit on that defense. Their secondary is really strong. Josh McLean led that group, and Sage Lay 8 sacks. So all three of those guys certainly deserve it.
159 tackles. That speaks for itself.
Yes, it does.
19 for loss.
I mean, you have to be active. You have to have speed. You have to be able to fight through blocks. And you have to be a good tackler to put numbers up like that. You have to be pretty much the quintessential linebacker.
Well, Seneca Valley played what? How many games did they play? 13?
Still, that's
13.
That's
No,
not
that's the point I'm trying to make.
9 and 4.
That's 11 or 12 tackles a game.
two tackles per loss a game.
Over that long a period of time, and obviously in the playoffs against some top-notch opponents.
Yeah.
So
Again, versatility. Jake Stebbins also caught 25 passes on offense.
that's what I mean. And two huge catches in their playoff win over North Allegheny. Huge catches down the right sideline. Mike, it's always great when you get to see a program like I love the smaller schools, like Union AC Valley and
They definitely
Joe
deserve.
DeHart making that team.
They definitely deserve to be represented on this team, and I couldn't think of a better guy than Joe DeHart to represent it, because I think he kind of epitomized small school football at Union AC Valley. It's good to see them bouncing back too, having a bounce back season, the first playoff trip since they had that co-op. I think there's going to be some good things coming in the future for AC Valley. We might see more guys on this team from Union AC Valley in the future.
That's our Sweet 16 selections, offense and defense. Once again, you can see those in great detail, along with the mugshots in this Sunday's Butler Eagle. And we will also have with that team an honorable mention list that the guys, this list could almost be a second Sweet 16.
We could have
the guys
made
that
a second Sweet 16.
the guys that couldn't
Sweet 32.
couldn't make this team. So I'm going to pose this question to you two guys, and I have my thoughts on this as well. Who do you think is our best player to fall short of the Sweet 16
There's
selection?
so
Michael, I'll start with you.
There's so many guys. It's almost hard to pick.
If you
one.
want to mention a couple guys, you can mention a couple.
Well, Chase Mullen from Knock would be one. We talked about Vita Pelosi and when he went to that offense, times that by 2 with Chase Mullen, the decisions he had to make on a play-by-play basis for Knock, and he put up some great numbers. Caleb Cameron,
Sure.
He had he started off great. I think he was slowed by a few things at the end of the season, but he was also good on defense. So those two guys really jump out at me. And Nick Martino, talking about another selfless guy from Montauk, good linebacker, great lead blocker. Bob Rotman raved about him all year about how the offensive line was great, Cody Weiss was great, but it was Nick Martino who was the lead blocking for him all season, opening up the holes, cleaning up linebackers in the second level. So those three guys really kind of jump out at me as guys who could very easily have made this team, but we had so many great players this year. It was hard to squeeze all these guys out there.
Well, you stole my thunder on Chase Mullen.
Yeah.
He's certainly
I
one of my guys.
I know he was one of your favorites.
Yeah, he's one of my guys. I mean, he's the trigger man of that triple option offense, and he's the guy who runs for any team at any level, let alone a high school team. It's a very difficult offense to run, and you can't do it without a high quality, intelligent quarterback. You got to make 3 or 4 different reads in a matter of like 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
This kid did it, threw for a number of yards, ran for a number of yards. Feel bad he didn't make the Sweet 16, but it kind of shows again how many quality players we had in the county this year. I'm going to throw out a little bit of love to a couple of Butler kids. I would love to have seen gotten on the team. One of them being J.R. Harold, their linebacker. In my view, best player on defense for them, a standout football player, stuck in a tough situation at Butler with them trying to rebuild a program there, but he had a great season for them. Almost made the team, barely got lopped off at the very end there. And Kyler Callahan, their running back turned quarterback.
I didn't mention him too.
You talk about a kid. You talk about a selfless player who gave up his position because they had a couple quarterbacks hurt in the span of the same practice. He stepped in there, struggled at first, but by the end of the season, this guy was a top level quarterback in 6A.
He was
so
a dual threat.
He really was.
Passing.
So kudos to those guys.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned him because that was another guy I was thinking of that it kind of slipped my mind. That had a great season that could have made his team, but fell a little short.
Yeah, Derek, what are your thoughts here? Your best player to not make the Sweet 16.
I got another Union AC Valley kid, Colby Best, and I believe he's only a junior, so he's coming back next year. Led the team in tackles, so he was a big reason why Union AC was able to get to the playoffs. And another one, I know we had 8 offensive linemen on the team already, but I want to throw some love to Carson Primrose, who Patrick O'Shea, Trojans coach, told me that he was a huge key for them on both sides of the ball. I think his best side is probably offense. North Catholic did get represented on our Sweet 16 from their offensive line by Finnegan O'Shea, but Carson Primrose was a big reason why that Trojan team went 10-2 this year.
And Connor Sellinger from Freeport.
Oh, you go on.
Another guy.
We could go on and on and on.
Yeah, we could
really
probably pick 2 guys from every team that we covered that didn't make it.
Oh, yeah.
Make a really, not just a case, but a strong case on why they deserve to be on the team.
Yeah, we really could.
But when you only have 32 spots, it's hard, especially when you get down to the last 3 or 4 because you got to make some tough choices.
So check out an honorable mention list in Sunday's Butler Eagle because there will be a lot of prime names on there. Our final category of our final show is Football Coach of the Year. We don't officially do that. We don't officially name a Coach of the Year, but I am curious to get our thoughts on if we did name a Coach of the Year, who that guy would be. And Derek, I'll throw it to you first. If we named a Football Coach of the Year, who's your choice?
There's several candidates, but I find it hard to go against Ron Bushley, considering Seneca Valley was coming off a 3-6 year in which they obviously didn't make the playoffs. And not just the fact that they got back to the playoffs this year, but they beat in the playoffs 2 teams that beat them in the regular season. He obviously pushed the right button with Gabe Lawson, gave him some time on the sidelines, and it worked out for him. Gabe Lawson came back, played a good second half against Central Catholic, played a great game against North Allegheny.
He did.
So, sometimes being a head coach in any sport comes down to just going with your gut. And I think Butchley went with his gut there, and it paid off. But from 3-6 to 9-4 and playing at Heinz Field, that's not a bad deal.
Mike, your choice for coach of the year.
Obviously, Butchley. If we did pick one, he would be the coach of the year based on what they did, getting better and better as the season went on, and what they did in the playoffs. Kind of almost finishing off that revenge tour, almost running the gauntlet of the three teams that beat him in the regular season in the playoffs. But I'm going to go off the script a little bit and go with Bob Rotman from Arkansas. He's the third head coach in 3 years there.
Yep.
28 guys on the roster. We talked about that at length this year, but he had 28 great guys. They started out a little rocky, but once they hit their stride, they were a really tough out. Ridgeway will tell you how tough out they are. I think he did a great job this year. It took them a little while to figure out, get our identity. Once they got their identity, that's when they were really, really tough to beat. I think he did a great job there. And another guy, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but Christie at Butler. Just for enduring a season like this, Eric Christie. Thanks for.
No, sure, no problem.
I was at Knock today doing a
Yeah,
volleyball feature on
you're
Kennedy
thinking
Christie.
Christie, yeah, you're thinking
so
of
I got
Christie's,
Kennedy
right?
Christie in my mind. I got Matt Christie in my mind. I got
Right.
Jeff Christie in my mind. So I knew it was Eric Christie. But I want this to come off the wrong way because we were saying, an 0-10 team, they got mercy rules. But I thought he did an amazing job this year keeping that team together. I don't think anyone quit.
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge, nobody quit.
Which is amazing considering the struggles they had. I think he did a great job for making that first step, establishing this is what we're going to be about. This is what the kind of players we're looking for. This is what we want this program to be in the future. I compare him a lot to Andrew DiDonato at Grove City College. He came in, went 0-10, 30 plus game losing streak. 2 years later, they finished the season with a bowl win 8-3. Now I'm not saying it's going to happen that fast for Butler, but I can see them trending up in the next few years. I just want to throw him out there because I thought the situation they were in, I thought he did an amazing job this year.
Well,
you saw him every week. You
did.
talked to him every week, so you can talk more about
Well, I can simply say this about Eric Christie and the Butler football team. The Butler team that I saw on the field against Kenny McMillan in the season finale was worlds better than the Butler football team I saw take the field down at Mortarella Stadium against North Hills in the season opener. Worlds better, and that's saying a lot when you've got pretty much a new staff in place here, a lot of young coaches, a lot of new players for Butler this year. They're like I said, their freshman numbers. They went from not having a freshman team down to 43 freshmen on this year's freshman team. Their midget program's winning. Their varsity team won the Super Bowl a second straight year, and down in the United Youth Football League. That doesn't sound like much now, but it could mean something 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road. As long as Butler chooses,
Yes,
I'm not afraid to say this publicly. As long as Butler decides to stay with the coach and give this guy a chance to build a program, give that young staff a chance to grow together. Bright days loom ahead for Butler football, but they've got to be patient and they got to give the guy time.
I'll say that if they give him, if they say, look, don't worry about, don't look over your shoulder, don't worry about us cleaning house. Do what you need to do. I think in 5 years, this Butler team will be very competitive in that section, if not competing, winning record playoffs. I really believe that because they're doing it the right way. They're starting at the young kids. They're getting numbers out. They have a plan. I think they have a plan in place. And if they're allowed to follow it, I think the rewards are going to be there. And like I said, it's going to take some time, but I think if they're patient, it's going to happen.
That's the other challenge, which leads me to my choice for County Coach of the Year, the Quad County Conference. You look at how the schools that are in that league, the programs and traditions, everything that Butler has to build toward. Ron Butchley and Seneca Valley got there this year and got there quickly. As Derek mentioned, I'm not going to repeat everything Derek said, but from 3-6 to 9-4. And the other thing, what Ron Butchley had dealt with this year, he had to make some hard decisions. The running back situation when Matt Stanger goes down, Jake Meinweiser comes in, does the job. Stanger gets healthy. He stays with Meinweiser. He got Stanger to buy into that. That's not an easy thing to do. We talked about the benching of the quarterback in the Central Catholic playoff game, and the fact that he came back and led his team to wins over Central Catholic and North Allegheny. Not only two great teams in that league, but two great teams in Western Pennsylvania football. Two tremendous programs, a lot of tradition. Anytime a team can come back and beat two teams in the playoffs, to beat them during the regular season, a lot of that's coaching. So Ron Butchie is my choice. All due respect to Bob Rock, who did a fantastic job on it.
If we were actually voting for, if we actually named the coach of the year and we were voting for it, I would have Ron Butchie. But I wanted to throw some other guys out there.
Well, that's our show. That's our football season. I do want to throw one last shout out. I know this is a high school show, but congratulations to Slippery Rock University. They're still playing football. They're into the. They barely made the Division II playoffs in the NCAA, and they've knocked off two very strong teams on the road. They're on the road again this Saturday. We wish them luck there. So congrats to the Rock and to all of our high school Sweet 16 and teams and the coaches. And we'll see you next season.